Hi, good Bat Neighbor community. Jen here, and we've got a very special Friday feature for you today, our monthly feature, where we're joined by folks from around the world who are helping bats. Joining us today from Limerick in the southwest of Ireland is one of our very own good Bat Neighbors, Susan Kerwin, Bat Rehabilitator and founder of Bat Rehabilitation Ireland. Hi, Susan.
How are you doing? Thank you for asking me.
I'm doing good.
Great.
How about you?
I'm all good. All good. Looking
We're
forward to
excited.
this.
We're excited to have you. So Susan, what made you want to help bats?
My story started a long time ago. So when I worked as a falconer. So I was a raptor
Oh,
specialist
oh
for
wow.
many years. And being a falconer and a raptor specialist, I would always receive calls for injured birds of prey that were found around the country, which I loved and thoroughly enjoyed. And then that would lead to other animals. So somebody found an injured fox or any type of mammal, they'd call me. Bats were something that I would see rarely come
Mm.
into care. But what happened when I was 27, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer.
Oh gee.
And yeah, so I was pretty young, and I had two
Yeah.
very young kids, and as you can imagine, everything just kind of came to a standstill in my life while we're trying to get through this diagnosis. And during the diagnosis, I found myself dealing with insomnia. So at night time,
Oh
kids would be
gosh.
gone to bed, and I found it very difficult to kind of get away from your thoughts. They kind of seem to always come in on top of you at night time.
Yeah.
It was during the summer months, and I started to spend a lot of time in the evening in my back garden once the kids were gone to bed. So I'd go out there, drink a cup of tea, just sit out. And it was this, now I knew we had bats in our neighborhood because I'd see them. I grew up in the same neighborhood, and
Oh,
an animal, I knew everything that flew or crawled or swam, everything. I just always loved nature.
that's
But
awesome.
this one evening, I noticed that there were maybe 200 bats that were coming out of the eaves of my neighbor's house, and I'd
Oh
never seen
wow.
this. And this took, between the bats coming in and going out, which I later realized it was a maternity roost,
Wow.
kept continuing over a series of hours. And
Very
for
cool.
that few hours, I didn't think of anything other than bats. I
Yeah.
didn't think of sickness. I didn't think of sleeping, anything. And it was the first time in a few months that I had actually been able to shut everything off and focus on something else. So that just became a part of my evening routine. All through
Right.
the summer months, kids would go to bed, I'd go out there, I'd watch the bats, and then I wanted to know more. So I wanted to know what species of bat they were.
Oh,
So I bought a bat detector. And then I found,
nice.
yes, I found out, I taught myself how to use a bat detector. And then I wanted to know what other species of bat were in our neighborhood. And it just helped me through such a difficult period in my life that I fell in love with bats. So I wanted to know then more about how I could help bats. So I joined my local bat group,
Oh,
and
very cool.
yes, became a committee member of a local back group. Then I started to reach out to other rescues and tell them that I was taking in bats. And I then started to realize that there was a pattern where there wasn't a lot of knowledge. So I couldn't learn in Ireland how to progress in bat rehabilitation. And it was being done, but not on a very knowledgeable scale. It was, so as we would have with other species.
Right.
So I decided then that I was going to reach out. So I reached out to the UK, I reached out to the United States, and I bought all of the books I could. I researched people like Maggie Brown and Bat Conservation Trust in the UK, who's an amazing lady and dedicated her life to bats and rehabilitation. Amanda Lawler in the United States. And I went online and I signed up for every virtual workshop I could do. Then, once I started to get a better understanding of that, I decided that, okay, I was going to move on to the next step. So I wanted to build a bat flight because I was getting these bats in, and I knew the importance of being able to assess the bats, especially young bat pups.
For anybody out there that doesn't know what a bat flight is, could you explain that?
So the bat flight is basically it's a flight cage. So it's a giant. It's 20 foot by 15 foot, 10 feet high, and it's an enclosure where I can safely fly the bats. It's made from a wooden frame with a very fine mesh, that the mesh allows insects in, but it doesn't allow the bats out.
Sounds good.
And by using a lighting system in there, and where we have it placed in the garden, it gets a lot of insect life. And what I
Oh,
can do, I can bring the bats down, especially the bat pups, put them into the flight. They can learn how to forage on insects. I can monitor them. And it really is vital part of the rehabilitation of any bat that comes into care. So we built the bat flight, and we realised that in in Ireland it was the only bat flight that had ever been built. So it was the
wow.
first.
Wow.
And what happened then was we used a social media campaign to kind of reach out to other rehabilitators and tell them that the backlight was there if they needed to use it, but also to encourage them to build their own. And very proud to say that now rehabbers north and south of the Irish border have backlights. So
Nice. That's
it's
awesome.
um from there, then you know what social media is like. It can be a curse, but if you're trying to do something positive, you can use it to your advantage too. So we put out there what we were doing with bats, why we were doing it. Okay, so the importance that it's such an important species, to the environment, and people were like, we didn't even know that you could rehabilitate bats
Yeah,
because, as you know, a bat is a very tiny animal, and sometimes tiny animals are overlooked. Um,
exactly.
yeah, and the importance of that animal as a keystone species, or
Yeah.
its environmental importance, is sometimes overlooked. People will say to me, "Are they not rodents? You know, are they not rodents? And shouldn't they be treated like rodents?" And just trying to break down those like old like misinformation and
Right.
thoughts of that
Yeah,
people
I
would have.
know we've got that in every country I've encountered so far. People go through that yeah, people don't necessarily think a lot about bats because like you said, they're so tiny and people just think they're rodents, so they're not important. But yeah, gosh, education is very, very important.
And sometimes in our lives in general, we don't look up. We spend a lot of time looking what's in front of us, getting our daily tasks done, or
Yeah,
you know, sometimes you just have to say, because they say, I don't know, I've never seen bats in my neighborhood, and I just
yeah,
say, look up. And sometimes
yeah,
at night time, you'll spot them,
yeah.
and then people come back and they say, this is a whole different world. I didn't even know it was outside my door. You know,
That's
um,
great.
it's so true. But social media then, and showing people what we were doing, and then all of a sudden it was just call after call after call. We found a bat. What did we do? We have bats in our attic. What did we do?
Oh gosh.
And it went from maybe having 50 bats in a year to now having over 400 bats in a year. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then that's here to the center, our own center, and then we work with other rehabbers around the country that might take in bats as well, and we'll advise them, share knowledge, and then
Oh, that's
offer
great.
here at the center if it's a particularly tricky injury that the bat has, or
Right.
if it just needs if it needs flight time and that rehabber doesn't have a flight.
Right.
So it escalated pretty quickly, you
Wow.
know.
That's incredible. Wow.
So,
Well, I guess you've already answered my question on what you do to be a good neighbor to bats. You do quite a bit. But I've also heard that you do some things with public outreach.
yeah,
Can you tell me a little bit about that? I heard you got a new night vision camera.
that's true. Yeah. So in Ireland, we have the National Heritage Council, and each year we can
Oh,
apply. You can apply for a grant towards them, which is fantastic. So we can apply
yeah.
for equipment, or if we needed, actually, we got funding to build our backlight as well. Some of the
Oh,
funding,
right.
yeah, from the Heritage Council. So last year we were given funding to buy some night vision equipment, which was a real game changer. the night vision equipment. It allowed us to bring, to when we're out on our bat walks and talks, to actually let people see the bats in flight at nighttime. So people were able to come down. We have a local river here. We have plenty of species in this village, but we have one particular species known as the Daubenton's bat, or our water bat, that flies very low over the water. And just being able to show participants the flight pattern of the bat was amazing. And we also use the night vision for reuniting bat pups to
Oh,
roosts.
nice.
Yeah, so we could use the night vision in the evening time to see where the bats are emerging from. If
Right.
it's in a house or building, and that then lets us know where the pup needs to be brought back to as well. So yeah, it was a real game changer. But we try to do as many in-person talks within communities around Ireland,
Mhm.
just that we can answer questions face to face, and
Right.
just deal with some of those, the misinformation around bats that people have always grown up with.
Nice, nice. And I know everybody encounters that people do have bats around, but they don't know much about them. And it's so important just to get people connected with them and for people to hear about them so that they have that appreciation and they do want to help them, especially when that help is out there. When you guys are doing so much, it's just so fantastic to get involved with the public like that.
Yeah,
And
I love it because I just love meeting new people, and that's one thing with doing the job that I do as a wildlife rehabilitator. I get to meet the most amazing people, because in Ireland, rehabilitators are volunteers. So even
oh,
though
right, yeah.
I started the charity, I'm the chairperson of the charity. I do all the rehabilitation. I'm on the road all the time doing talks, picking up animals, all that. It's all volunteer.
Yeah.
We don't have any paid employees here in Ireland in wildlife rehabilitation.
Yeah.
So when you meet people that do something because they really, really love it,
Yeah.
it's infectious. It
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
very, you
Yeah.
know, so I get to meet some, and then working with some of the scientific institutes that I'm working with at the moment, I get to meet incredible people.
Yeah. Tell me about the work you're doing with that.
Well, at the moment, I'm working with several institutes. One of the institutes that I'm working with is a UCD Bat Lab. So in Ireland, we
Oh,
have a very good bat lab, which is amazing. And they
wow.
work on genetics and studying the genomes of bats. So I'm working with the team there, and what we're doing is they've designed me some really amazing equipment. It allows me to take pictures of any of the patagium injuries, so the wing membrane injuries that
Oh,
bats are here with, and then by taking series of photographs weekly, we can see the healing process for each individual species.
wow.
And this will also, yeah, because bats are just incredible, and they're incredible. Like, how their healing properties, they're that in within the patagium. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll have been maybe predated on. 90% of the time, it's a cat that might predate
Yeah.
on them,
Yeah.
and they're shredded. That skin on the wings is absolutely shredded. And
Yeah.
within a few months, if the bat is because they need to, once they come in, if they've been predated on, obviously they need a series of antibiotics, pain
Yeah.
relief, then flight. But if that bat begins to heal, it's done so rapidly that in
Wow.
some cases it can be as little as 12 weeks, and that bat is back in the air. And it's just to be able to study that and to monitor the different species is incredible, because having up to 400 bats coming in and out the door every year,
Yeah.
a huge number to work with. And
Yeah.
also, you're working with animals that have accidentally come into care, so you're not disturbing animals in the wild, and it just wouldn't be possible to monitor something like that in the wild. So this is really, really valuable. And we're also working on studies of virology, working on a really cool project with an arborist from Scotland, and who is looking at the preferred crevice size in trees, natural roofs that can be created for bats in the wild rather than using artificial ones. So
Right.
at the moment, I have lots of different types of roosts, natural roosts within the flight. And then I'm monitoring which species prefers which and what they're used for. So it's
Nice.
when you have this amount of bats in care, it's
Yeah.
really, and I get contacted every week by PhD students that are looking to do some sort of a project, and I'm
Oh, wow.
delighted to be able to help, because every step is toward in conservation is towards better understanding the animal, which means that we can give them better care. And rehabilitation is really just a symptom of the larger problem.
Yeah.
So it's about teaching people that habitat destruction, how that affects the animal, pesticides, overuse, even in small gardens, pollution, and that's where really the education part of it steps in. So if I can show on my social media the process that a bat goes through healing, show a little bit of its personality, because they all
Yeah.
have personality,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that engages a person. And that person then start, because we protect what we love, right? If
Yeah.
we don't protect what we don't.
Yeah.
So by showing that, it's engaging a person, and that can sometimes be the step towards conservation that
Yeah.
people need.
And that actually brings me to my next question. What can people do to keep bats from needing to be rehabbed in the first place? Are there any tips that they can do themselves, any steps they can take so that bats are safe around them?
Yes. So there's loads of things that we can do just to make sure that we're giving a nice, healthy environment for our bats. I think one of the obvious ones is pesticides, chemicals in our garden. Using chemicals, even rodenticide. Rodenticide is a huge problem here in Ireland. And when you think of rodenticide, we think rats and mice, okay? But actually, rodenticide is put into a bait box. That
Uh-huh.
bait box is left in your garden. Insects go in, they eat
Oh,
it because it's sweet. Then they come out, the birds eat them, or the bats eat them.
right.
And rodenticide, secondary rodenticide, is a huge problem for all wildlife. So just think of rodenticide or rodent poison as wildlife poison, and
Yeah.
don't just think of ground mammals, because we're thinking of terrestrial animals as well.
Yeah.
So try to cut out using chemicals in your garden. Then habitat. When you go out to your garden and you see a tree, so a tree is overgrown and the limbs are kind of hanging down. When we look at a tree, we think of birds. Are there birds nesting in it? Maybe squirrels, insects, but you don't really think of bats. So people don't really think that that could be home to a bat. So if you have a tree that has an old limb that's dying on it, just be conscious that there could be bats in there that are living it as well. So habitat destruction
Yeah.
overall. And then cats.
Yeah.
We love cats. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
cats.
Oh, yeah.
People, I love them. I love cats. I love their personalities. I just think that they make great companions. But if they're left feral, they cause a huge problem, and they are a big enemy to a bat. If you have a cat, try and monitor it when it's out in the garden. Maybe build a catio, that the cats can be outside in the sunshine, but they're secure. And if your cat does bring home an injured bat, what can happen is the cat itself, it's not looking to feed on the bats. It's the movement of the bat that it wants to play, basically, and it can
Yeah.
decimate up really, really fast. So just taking care of our domestic pets as well, and that they're not interfering with the wild animals that live around us.
Nice. Um, so what's your favorite bat?
My favorite bat, okay, so I have two, but I have the whisker bat here in Ireland. It's a Toyota species. So it's a beautiful bat. So really has a really kind of a grey, shaggy coat, really dense coat, and is very vocal. So it gives
Yeah.
out a lot. I think they're super, super cute. And then Liza's bat. So Liza's bat is our largest species of bat in
Oh,
Ireland.
okay.
It's not very large.
Yeah.
They range from 16 to 18 grams, and they're quite big and substantial in your hand.
Oh yeah.
So, but depending on the time of the year, they can either be quite docile or quite grumpy. So, but the Leisler's back pup is a gentle back pup. So yeah, I have. But to be honest, I love all of them. Like still, every time a shoebox arrives, because that's what bats arrive in shoeboxes. People think I probably have a shoe fetish, but I don't. I have lots of shoeboxes at the side of my house. But every time the shoebox arrives, I'm thinking, oh, what's in it? What is it going to be? Because we only have 9 species of bat in Ireland, so we're always hoping that we will come across something new because they're out there. Our
Yeah,
neighbours
yeah.
they have plenty, so we're always hoping that one will appear. So yeah, I do. I love all of them, and I never ever get tired of looking at them.
Nice. So, how can people help you? Are there, can they make donations or can they volunteer at your center? What can people do to help you out?
We have a volunteer network, which is the backbone of Bat Rehabilitation Ireland, and it's our transport volunteers, and they help because we get bats that come from one side of the country, and if we don't have somebody that can rehab them up there, unfortunately, they have to travel down. So you can contact us if you're interested in becoming a transport volunteer. I'm also doing a series of talks on the introduction to bat rehabilitation. We've done our first one that was in Dublin Zoo, who we're conservation partners with, which is
Oh, nice.
amazing. Yeah, so we did in Dublin Zoo in their science building. We have another coming up in Limerick in early April. But any workshops or any presentations that are coming up will be made public on our Facebook page.
Okay.
Donation wise, we don't get funding from the government here in Ireland, so we do rely on donations. You can donate. It does like nothing. No donation is too small. Okay, I just have to explain. It's none. We appreciate everything
Yeah.
that we get. So you can do that on our Facebook page or through our website, which is batrehabilitation.ie. And also on that website, you'll find lots of information about how you can garden for bats or what you can do if you find one,
Nice.
and how to contain a bat. So yeah, we're always very grateful for either volunteers or donations.
Okay. And everybody, I'll have that information in the post. I'll put some links in there so it'll be easy for you to find. So, well, gosh, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been awesome and given people a lot of good information. Hopefully people have a lot to think about. And we really appreciate you showing up.
Thank you. I really appreciate you asking me. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. And thank you everybody out there for joining us. And we will see you next month. Have a good one. Thanks.
Sure.
Bye.